Somewhere in West Texas, a man with one of the purest golf swings anyone has ever seen is hitting balls into an empty field. Nobody's watching. The range is half broken. The lights barely work. The shots landing out there in the dark would be extraordinary at any tournament in the world. He hits one, then another, and they're all perfect. He's been here for years. Now, Roy McAvoy will tell you that greatness courts failure, that most people never reach for the impossible shot because they're afraid of what happens if they miss. He says it like a philosophy, but this is what that philosophy is covering for. A man who can do something extraordinary and has spent years arranging his life so he never has to prove it where it counts. It's Masters Week here on Psychology and Fiction, and so I thought it would be appropriate to do a golf-themed character psychology breakdown. So let's get into one of my favorite movies of all time, Tin Cup. Roy Tin Cup McAvoy is a man with tour-level talent, running a ramshackle driving range in Salome, Texas. He drinks too much, bets too often, and hasn't come close to the professional career everyone expected from him. When a psychologist named Molly Griswold shows up for lessons and Roy discovers she's dating his college rival, now a PGA star, something cracks open. He decides to qualify for the US Open. The easy read on Roy is ego, pride, a guy who can't get out of his own way. But the psychology underneath suggests something different, something deeper, and more familiar than most people want to admit. Roy isn't failing because he doesn't care. He's failing because he cares so much that he's built his entire life around never having to find out what happens when he gives everything and it still isn't enough. You're more like Roy McAvoy than you realize. We all probably are, in a lot of ways. Start with what Roy built for himself, or rather, what he built against himself. In 1978, psychologist Edward Jones and Stephen Berglass gave a name to something people had been doing forever. They called it self-handicapping, the tendency to construct obstacles around yourself before a high-stakes performance. I've certainly done this. And we don't do it from laziness, we do it from fear. If you surround your talent with enough chaos, enough drinking, enough poverty, enough quiet sabotage, then when you fail, the failure isn't about you, it's about the circumstances. And if you somehow succeed despite all of it, the win feels even larger. Either way, your ego survives intact. Roy's whole life is the architecture of that fear. The dilapidated range, the drinking, the qualifying meltdowns that ended his shot at the tour before the story even began. Every obstacle he's built between himself and the professional game is a wall between his ego and the one question he can't afford to answer. What if I give everything I have and it's not enough? As long as that wall stands, he never has to find out. We've all done this. Maybe you've underinvested in something that you cared about so that if it failed, you'd have a reason ready to go. Maybe you kept one foot out of the door of a relationship just in case. Maybe you told yourself for years that you never really tried because that's easier than trying and learning the hard truth. The handicap feels like protection, and what it actually does is become the ceiling on your life. Then there's the question of the layup, which Roy will never take. Over and over, on a hole with water that's beaten him before, he takes the low percentage carry when everyone around him is begging for the iron. His caddy, his better judgment, common sense, he waves them all off. This isn't stubbornness. Psychologist Carol Dweck spent decades studying what she called fixed versus growth mindset. The difference between people who believe their abilities are something to develop and people who believe their abilities are something to prove. For someone with a fixed mindset, every performance is a verdict, not on how you played today, but on who you are. Roy's shot selection is never really about the shot. It's about his identity. Playing it safe means accepting that he's the kind of man who plays it safe. And that, to Roy, is a kind of quiet death. One he refuses every single time he steps up to that ball. The cost of living this way is enormous, and you probably know it from the inside. When your sense of self gets fused with your performance, every decision stops being a choice and becomes a test. You can't try something new because what if you're bad at it? You can't compromise because what if that makes you ordinary? The safe shot stops being a strategy and starts feeling like surrender. And for someone like Roy, maybe for someone like you, surrender is the one outcome worse than losing. But here's where Tin Cup does something most stories don't. There's a moment at the water hazard in the heat of competition where Roy keeps taking the same impossible shot. Ball after ball, the number on his scorecard climbs into territory that would end most players' days. By any conventional measure, it's catastrophic. And by any human one, it's something else entirely. Psychologists Richard Ryan and Edward Deci found after decades of research that the most durable form of satisfaction doesn't come from winning. It comes from acting in full alignment with your own values. Doing something because it means something, not because of what it earns you. I love this one, and it seems far too rare these days, but it's called intrinsic motivation. And what the research kept showing was that people operating from that place, not from fear, not from the hunger for external validation, experience something that outcome-based achievement simply cannot replicate. Roy doesn't keep taking that shot to win. He takes it because that shot is who he is. For the first time, he's not using his talent as armor. He's using it as a declaration. The self-handicap is gone. The fixed mindset cracks. He's not protecting himself anymore. He's being himself, fully, in front of everyone, regardless of the number that follows. The scorecard looks the same. The person swinging is not. Roy Tin Cup McAvoy isn't a cautionary tale. He's a mirror. The recklessness that looks self-destructive from the outside is, underneath, the most honest thing about him. The tragedy was never that he kept going for the impossible shot. The tragedy was how long he spent hitting balls into an empty field in the dark where no one could ever see what he could do. The balls are still out there. The field is still empty. The only thing that ever stood in the way was him. And you already know what that feels like. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to pick up some of my free novels, you can grab them through the link in the description below. Or you can go straight to my Amazon page and check out my latest novel in the link in the pinned comments or also in the description below. And if you did enjoy this video, I think you're really going to enjoy this one about Ryland Grace from Project Hail Mary.